Welcome back to the 2 Minute Warning. Today, I'm looking at the matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and Tennessee Titans after it has been announced they will play in Week 1. But before we get into that topic, question for those of you viewing, just an easy, straight-up question. Who do you think will win this matchup, the Cardinals or the Titans, and what is your score prediction? I will reveal my answer at the end. But getting straight into this topic, I'm a pretty big fan of this matchup because this is two possible playoff teams on the line facing in Week 1, and that's very interesting. I'm going to go through the matchup and starting with the quarterback position, who has the edge there? It's really hard to determine because I do seriously think Ryan Tannehill will take a small step back after losing his his offensive coordinator who became a head coach in Arthur Smith. He lost Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. And yeah, he has A.J. Brown still, who is a phenomenal talent. But still, I don't know if he could carry the load of Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, and Arthur Smith, all of them combined. And Kyler Murray, he's only getting better. He's extremely young. I do think heading into his third year, he's going to be a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. But if you go with Tannehill, I'm not going to argue against you. I think both are pretty decent, both above average quarterbacks, but Kyler Murray is the better guy, in my opinion, to me. Looking at the run game, pretty heavily swayed toward Derrick Henry. The Cardinals, I don't even know if they know who their starting guy is right now in Chase Edmonds and James Conner. But no matter who it is, none of them are even going to touch Derrick Henry. He's arguably the number one back in the NFL. Offensive line, I do think the Cardinals got a little bit better getting Rodney Hudson, but I do think the Titans have a pretty packed offensive line, so I'm going to give them the edge there. It's not extremely dominant over the Cardinals, but I think it's well known or fair enough that the Titans do have a better O-line than the Cardinals. Looking at the receiving core, again, I said earlier, A.J. Brown is a phenomenal talent. Top 10 wide receiver. It's just a freak in nature. You added Josh Reynolds to kind of help out, be a sideline guy, but when the other team's got DeAndre Hopkins, it's not the same. And it's not just DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, they got AJ Green, Christian Kirk. They added Rondell Moore. A lot of speed and a lot of size. A perfect combination at that receiving core. And I guess Larry Fitzgerald hasn't retired. He could come back, I guess, technically. I don't think he's coming back, but just between Rondell Moore, AJ Green, a guy that's going to be possibly on a comeback here, Christian Kirk, a sneaky slot guy, I think the Cardinals receiving core definitely tops the Titans. So overall on offense, I do think it's a toss-up. O-line and running backs go to the Titans, and the quarterback and receiving core goes to the Cardinals, in my opinion. But to me, it's super close. But I do think I would give the better offense to the Cardinals. I just think they're slightly more electric and not so heavily reliant on one-dimensional plays in Derrick Henry. The Titans, if Derrick Henry has a bad day, they has a bad day. And not to say if Kyler Murray doesn't have a bad day, the Cardinals will do fine without him. But I'm just saying the Titans have everything they have. All their eggs in one basket are in Derrick Henry. Cardinals, I feel like they're a little more balanced. I'm going to give them the edge on offense. Looking at the defense, it gets a little more interesting. Titans got their specks of talent, Jeffrey Simmons, they added Bud Dupree, Janoris Jenkins, maybe Caleb Farley's going to turn things around, Kevin Byard. But when it comes to depth, I do think they lack a little bit. And then not to say the Cardinals have a lot of depth either. I think they're both very similar and they have specks of talent and neither have great amount of depth. The Cardinals, Budda Baker, Malcolm Butler, they added Zaven Collins or Zavon Collins, however you want to pronounce it, Isaiah Simmons, Jordan Hicks. But getting Chandler Jones back, a guy last time he's healthy led the league in sacks at 19, and having J.J. Watt on the other side, that is an extremely dangerous Cardinals defense, in my opinion, at least when it comes to the front seven. I have my question marks about their secondary. Like I said, Budda Baker, Malcolm Butler, losing Patrick Peterson was huge, but I think that front seven and front pass rush is going to be so strong. This Cardinals team is going to be impressive. Hopefully, for the Cardinals' sake, I'm not a fan of either team. But hopefully for their sake, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, Jordan Hicks, one of those guys can just be your job is to tackle Derrick Henry. Wherever he goes, you go. Hopefully they could just, between that strong linebacker core, they can hopefully shut down the run. I'm not too confident in the interior defensive line for the Cardinals to do that, and that's why I'm asking more out of the linebacker core. But the same thing goes for the Titans. You got Jeffrey Simmons and Bud Dupree, but getting Bud Dupree, paying him a lot of money, you need to see pass rush on your end as well. Getting after Kyler Murray, a guy that likes to leave the pocket, you got to contain him, you got to get after him, and you got to get him on the ground. You can't let him get loose because he's just as dangerous as Lamar Jackson sometimes in the open field. Again, I love this matchup overall. I'm not a fan of either team, and both teams are so different. You got Kyler Murray who moves everywhere. He's got a great arm, in my opinion, and he's just as mobile as any other receiver in open field or running back in open field. But then you got the Titans, who are very systematic with Arthur Smith at lead. I'm curious how it'll be now that Mike Vrabel's taken over more, or obviously it'll still be an offensive coordinator, but Arthur Smith leaving, I think we're going to see Ryan Tannehill possibly branch out more out of play action and Derrick Henry plays, and we're going to see how he goes when he doesn't have the perfect system going in his favor. Overall, though, both are pretty good teams all around. I do think the Cardinals will win this one. They started off hot last year in the NFL. They went 2-0. I think they're going to start off hot again this year. It'll be a close game, and if the Titans come out on top at home, I won't be surprised in the slightest. Like I said, both are possible playoff teams, but I just think the Cardinals are going to start off a little more hot, and I do think them not really losing much this offseason, but Patrick Peterson, this is going to be a similar Cardinals team, but better next year. Titans, I don't know if I can say the same. They lost a decent amount in Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler and Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis and Arthur Smith. And they did add pieces in Bud Dupree and Caleb Farley. But again, I don't know if they got better than they were last year. And therefore, I just think the Cardinals win this edge. I like the Cardinals to be a possible playoffs team. Titans, they could be a possible playoff team as well. But I do think the Colts with Carson Wentz, I think they're going to be a dangerous team in the AFC South to go after the Titans. And Titans, they got to win a couple of these tough games against the Cardinals, against these other playoff teams if they want to make a playoff spot. But we'll just have to see. Worrying about just this matchup, I do have the Cardinals winning in a very close game. I'm going to say something like 27-20. I think it'll be very competitive, but a one-score game. As always, guys, I do want to hear your comments. Do you agree or disagree with my take about the comparison between the teams? Who wins what matchup? And again, do you agree, or what's your opinion on the question today? Do you agree that the Cardinals will win this one, or do you think the Titans will? Comment down below. As always, guys, of course, I do appreciate it watching. Again, 2-minute warning.